She called it a scholarship, which sounded so wholesome I almost felt stupid for asking follow-up questions. Jenna came home one Tuesday with that light behind her eyes she gets when she thinks the universe finally remembered her email address. She set a canvas tote on the counter, kissed me quick, and held my face like she was afraid I'd blink through it. "You're looking at one of 10 people selected for a professional development scholarship," she said. 3 days, training intensive, certificate at the end. Boom. "That's amazing," I said, because it was. Jenna's been trying to claw her way out of a front desk role at her company for a year. She's smarter than her job title and twice as patient as her boss. She teaches herself things from YouTube at 1 a.m. and then shows up at 8 with coffee for everyone else. If anyone deserved a shot, it was her. "Where?" I asked. She spun a strand of hair around her finger like she was winding the excitement into something that wouldn't explode. "Technically, the program is hosted by a partner org, so the housing is like a dorm situation," she said. "It's out of state, short flight, west." "West is a big place," I said, smiling. She smiled back, coy. "Let me be mysterious. It's only 3 nights, Thursday through Sunday. Flights are cheap midweek, and it's a scholarship, so the tuition's covered. I just need to pay for course materials and incidentals up front. They reimburse those after. There is a specific shorthand you learn when you've been together long enough to share a bank account and a cereal preference. Course materials and incidentals meant we need to borrow from the safety cushion. The cushion is our high-yield savings with an ugly nickname. I treat it like a glass case that says break only if bleeding. Jenna treats it like a polite friend you could ask for $20 and promise you'll Venmo them back by Friday. "How much?" I asked. $800, she said, turning it into a question with her eyebrows. "For the course packet, the app license they make you buy, ride shares, food. I'll file the forms Monday when I'm back. Easy." We'd been pretty disciplined this year. Automatic transfers to the cushion every paycheck, cheap date nights, cooking at home more than we ordered out. $800 wasn't going to sink us. But calling it a scholarship and then listing out-of-pocket costs made something in me tilt. I swallowed that and nodded. "Okay," I said, "we can move $800. I'll set you up as an authorized user on the travel card so it's clean. And I'm turning on alerts, not to spy, just so nothing weird slips through while you're in class." She laughed and hugged me. "You're such a dad about money," she said into my neck. "I love you for it." I transferred the money after we ate pasta on the couch. She sat cross-legged with her laptop open, filling out a form that looked like it had been designed by someone who loved fonts more than humans. I watched her face cycle through the expressions I love. The studious squint, the little tongue poke when she typed something complicated, the satisfied grin. I asked where the new tote came from. She said the partner org sent it with the welcome packet. I believed her because the word scholarship had wrapped itself around my better judgment like a blanket. Wednesday was a blur of work for me. I'm a business analyst at a health tech company, the please make this number make sense guy. I spent the morning building a dashboard and the afternoon presenting it to people who said make it pop, even though numbers don't pop. Jenna texted me a photo of her packing list, leggings, sneakers, a stack of spiral notebooks, a highlighter bouquet. She captioned it Scholar Vibes and added 3-star emojis. I sent back a flexing arm and a heart, the universal language of, proud of you, go get it. That night, she asked if we could move the $800 now so she could pick up the packet early. We logged into the bank together. I added her as an authorized user on the travel card and toggled every single push notification option on my phone, card present, card not present, foreign transaction, hotel holds, everything. I told myself I was being careful because I'm me. She kissed my cheek and called me responsible instead of paranoid. We went to bed before 11 like grown-ups with morning alarms and a plan. She flew out Thursday afternoon. The plan, as she told it, was to land, check into the dorm-style housing, grab a bite with 2 other awardees from the airport group chat, and be asleep by 10 because the training started at 8 a.m. She texted me a photo of a boarding pass and then a wing over brown desert and a caption that said, "West really is West." I took the dog around the block and tried to be happy without the hollow echo you get when you realize you like your life more with someone in it. At 9:11 p.m., my phone lit up with a bank push. Card ending 3127 was charged $45.20 at Mandalay Bay Resort. Category: lodging. Location: NV. Type: hotel fee. I was loading dishes into the washer. I wiped my hands on a towel and stared at the notification until the numbers felt like a prank. I tapped it, then tapped again to see the detail. Resort fee. Las Vegas, Boulevard South. Not a dorm, not a scholarship partner's housing, Mandalay Bay. I leaned against the counter because my knees did that thing where they suddenly remember gravity is optional. There's nothing inherently evil about Las Vegas. People go there and come back with stories and neon hangovers and somebody's unpaid parking ticket. But the training wasn't in Las Vegas. The training was somewhere west with dorms and classmates and a schedule. That's how she had sold it. She had said, Dorm and I had pictured cinder block rooms with twin beds and many rules. Mandalay Bay has sharks and blackjack and a fake beach. I told myself there were reasons. Hotels charge fees even when you're not staying there. Maybe her flight got diverted. Maybe the partner org had a block rate. Maybe the dorms were being renovated. Maybe the word scholarship is elastic. I texted her, land okay? She replied 2 minutes later, yes, exhausted. Check-in was a mess. People everywhere. I'll call in the morning. Love you. I almost wrote which check-in. Instead, I wrote, sleep. Proud of you. Love you. I put the towel on the counter, then picked it up and smoothed it and put it down again because it bothered me that it looked careless when I felt anything but. I took the dog out again even though he gave me a look like he was unsure what the plan was. I walked 2 blocks, 3, 5, past the Mexican place we like and the dark windows of the barber who knows my name. I listened to the sound the city makes when it thinks you're not listening. It sounds like delivery trucks and laughter and a wind that smells like other people's dinners. Back home, I tried to sleep and failed. At midnight, I put on a podcast about World War II because nothing makes my heartbeat feel normal like hearing about logistics in the Ardennes. At 12,037, I needed water and got up and checked my phone again because I'm disgusting like that. There was another notification. Card ending 3127 was authorized for $200 at Uber Technologies. Category, transport. Location, NV. Type, card not present. 200 isn't a single ride. It's a deposit for a weekend of them. I lay down and told myself sternly, I am not a detective. I am a person who loves a person who is in a different time zone and made a choice to stay somewhere I wasn't expecting. I'm also a person who built a layered budget in Google Sheets that makes my accountant father tear up with pride. I put my phone face down, turned the podcast up, and finally slept. At 8,002 Friday morning, she sent me a selfie with the caption study Day 1. It was a good picture. Jenna is one of those people who can take a photo with 10 minutes of sleep and look like she just stepped out of an ad for Actually Drink Water. She was in front of a window. The light was that specific bright you get out west that makes everything look like a movie set. Behind her, reflected faintly in the glass, was a long curve of light that looked an awful lot like the spine of a neon sign. I could make out a letter that might have been an M. It could have been anything. It could have been nothing. My stomach did the wave. I saved the photo to my camera roll. I'm not a hacker. I'm not even particularly nosy. But I know how to tap an iPhone photo and swipe up to see info because my mother sends me sunsets with GPS coordinates so exact you could find her lawn chair. I tapped the eye in the circle and the little card came up. It said Friday, 8,002 a.m. It said the phone. It said the lens. And under location, it said Las Vegas, NV. A tiny map unfurled with a red pin. You could see the outline of the strip like someone had sketched a river and then convinced hoteliers to dam it with light. I sat very still. There are a handful of moments in your life when the volume drops out and something inside you goes quiet. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even heartbreak yet. It was the click a door makes when it finds the latch. I didn't text her. I put my phone down flat on the table because I didn't trust my hands not to do something stupid. I made coffee I didn't drink and scrambled eggs. I didn't taste and fed the dog half my toast because he believes in mercy. Then I went to my desk, opened a blank Google Doc, and typed 3 lines. Thursday 9/9/11 p.m. Resort fee, Mandalay Bay, 4520, card ending 3127. Friday 8,002 a.m. Jenna selfie, EXIF location, Las Vegas, Blovedy. S Friday 8,040 a.m. Uber hold $200, card ending 3127. I copied the bank push details into the doc under the first and third lines. For the second, I took a screenshot of the photo info card and pasted it below the sentence. I added the tiny map. I opened Google Maps on my laptop, typed in Mandalay Bay, and watched the pin drop near the bottom of the strip. I took a screenshot of that too, and drew no circles, no arrows, nothing dramatic. I wrote at the top in a small black font, for my records, not for punishment, for clarity. And then I closed the laptop and went to work because life doesn't stop just because yours taps the brakes. Work had that soft static of a Friday when people are half on vacation in their heads. I answered email. I built a small chart. I stared at a cell longer than any one cell deserves to be stared at. Around noon, I put on my jacket and walked 2 blocks to the bank. The branch manager is a man in his 50s who knows the birthdays of everyone's kids and the exact right tone to take when telling old ladies their CD matured. I said I wanted to talk about alerts and limits for authorized users. He smiled and brought me into a tiny glass office that smelled like printer and peppermint. "Taking a trip?" he asked. "Sort of," I said. "I need to talk hypothetically about card controls when someone's using an authorized user card for travel." He nodded like he'd heard every version of human life through this office. We went through the settings on the travel card. There is a maximum per transaction limit, a per day cap, and a way to turn off cash advances entirely. There's also a travel toggle. I asked about what happens if the authorized user uses the card for lodging in a city that isn't where they told you they were going. He said the bank doesn't care where you go. They care that you pay. He said, if you're worried, lower the limits so nothing catastrophic happens. We adjusted the cap down a notch. I left with a printout that said what the card could do now. I would have felt like a bad guy if the paper in my pocket hadn't felt like a seatbelt. On the way back, I called an employment lawyer I'd found a year ago when my company was doing layoffs. He'd given a free webinar about how to read your severance. I liked his voice, calm, like his job is to hold you by the collar while you lean over the chasm and look and then pull you back. I told him I had a general question about how to document a personal loan between partners from a shared savings account so it's actually a loan, not a gift. He said it was simple. Write a promissory note, both sign it, specify the amount, the purpose, and the repayment terms. If the relationship ends, the note survives. If it doesn't, the note can be forgiven. He emailed me a template while we were still on the phone. People think of lawyers as the nuclear option, he said. Most of the time, we're seatbelts. I thanked him and went back to the office and filled the template in with clumsy fingers. Amount, $800. Purpose, materials and incidentals for professional development training. Repayment by the 15th of each month in 4 equal installments if reimbursement is not approved. I left the last line blank. If the undersigned do not remain cohabiting partners as of then. I didn't like writing it. I also liked the feeling that I wasn't going to let my future self clean up a mess with bare hands. Jenna texted me at 4:03 p.m. Day 1 was great. Speakers were legit. I'm wiped. How was your day? I stared at the bubble. I typed good. Long. Proud of you again. Sleep early. Then I deleted it. I typed, we need to go over some money stuff when you get back. Nothing bad. Just want to make sure we're both on the same page about limits and reimbursements. Love you. Then I deleted that too because it sounded like an HR email in a marriage. I typed, love you. Call when you can. She sent back a heart. I walked home through the pink hour the city does so well. I fed the dog, ate a burrito, and sat on the floor next to my laptop with the PDF open. The 3 lines on the first page looked small and civilized. It didn't feel small inside me. I added a title, Jenna's Scholarship Trip, Receipts. That made me feel like a jerk, so I changed it to Las Vegas Charges, 3/127, and my stomach unclenched half a notch. I printed it and slid it into a cheap plastic folder, the kind kids use for math homework. It made the whole thing feel less like a bomb and more like paperwork. Saturday morning, the notifications were quiet. If she was in sessions all day, there wouldn't be much to see. At 11:06 a.m., there was a small charge at a coffee shop in the Mandalay Concourse, which I only knew because I Googled the name and saw a photo of a pastry case in front of a bank of slot machines. I didn't screenshot it. I closed the tab. I took the dog to the park and threw a ball until he decided balls are actually a scam. When we got home, I opened my email and typed a message to HR at Jenna's company 3 times without sending it. I don't work where she works. I don't want to be the guy who writes to HR about his girlfriend's trip. That way lies restraining orders and storylines for office gossip. I deleted the draft. Instead, I wrote a generic note to the HR portal that said, pretend I'm an employee with a general policy question. If an employee receives a professional development scholarship from a third party that covers tuition only, and the employee incurs lodging and meal costs, does the company reimburse those costs? Is prior authorization required? What documentation is needed? I pressed submit. If they responded by Monday, I could show Jenna the policy in neutral language. If they didn't, I could still show her my 3 calm lines and ask for a calm answer. At 5:22 p.m., she sent me another selfie. Study buddies, it said. She was in the foreground with 2 women behind her on a couch, notebooks on their knees. The reflection in the window behind them was busy, like a lobby. There were plants, glossy and tall. I tapped the I Las Vegas, NV. I swiped the map bigger. The pin wasn't Mandalay, but it was a 5-minute walk away. She and her friends could have been truly anywhere, in a city that sells anywhere as a service. I decided, for my sanity, to stop being the kind of person who zooms in to see the font on a potted plant's care tag. Saturday night, I cooked chicken and too many vegetables and ate on the couch with the game on mute. I fell asleep with a fork on my plate like a sad metaphor. I woke at 2 a.m. to a push I didn't need. Card ending 3W27 was charged $58.26 at the Strat Hotel. Category? Lodging. Type: hotel fee. At breakfast, I printed a second page. I added it under the first with a paperclip, like I was a temp assembling a file. The folder got heavier. On Sunday, she was quieter. Travel days are a mess, even when you have only pills and socks. She texted me a boarding pass at 11:48 a.m. and an airplane window at 12,018 that could have been any sky. She landed at 3,007 and texted, "Baggage claim hell. See you soon. Love you." I put the folder on the counter next to the fruit bowl like a normal thing in a normal kitchen. I took a deep breath and decided, no show, no yelling, no metaphors, just the facts I had and the person I loved and a decision about what we'd do next if the facts and the person didn't match. The door opened at 352. The dog launched himself at Jenna like he'd been paid. She dropped her bag and sat on the floor and let him climb her like a mountain and licked her face back with a commitment to equality. She laughed, and my traitor heart did that swell. It does when it thinks things can be fine. "Hi," she said, standing to kiss me. She smelled like airplane and dryer sheets. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "You?" "Totally wiped," she said. She turned to her bag. "I need a shower and then naps forever." "Before you do," I said, "because if I waited, I'd chicken out. I need to talk through something. 5 minutes." She looked at the folder like it was a snake. "What did I do?" she asked, performing offense like a card trick. "Nothing," I said carefully, which wasn't true, but the conversation didn't deserve to start on a ledge. I need clarity. She sat on a stool like she was in a meeting. She would win by being charming. I slid the folder over. She didn't touch it. "What is it?" she asked. 3 things, I said, holding up 3 fingers like I was teaching a class of energetic 4th graders. A hotel fee at Mandalay Bay on Thursday night charged to the travel card. An Uber hold for the weekend on the travel card. The location data on a photo you sent Friday morning. Her face went very smooth, the way people's faces go when their brain is picking which story to throw at the wall. "So?" she said, light. "So," I said, matching her tone so I didn't set anything on fire. "Your scholarship housing wasn't a dorm. It was Las Vegas." "And?" she said. She smiled like this was a riddle with a gift card at the end. "Vegas has dorms. Vegas has everything." "Did your company approve this travel?" I asked, not moving anything in my face. She rolled her eyes. "It's a scholarship," she said. "It's not like I'm asking them to pay. It's professional development. They're lucky to have me doing this." "And who are you there with?" I asked. "Other awardees," she said. The word awardees so unserious I wanted to cancel an entire dictionary. I opened the folder and slid the 2 printed pages toward her. She glanced down, then up, then away. The dog put his head on my knee like he'd been hired by a therapist. I scratched his ears and tried very hard to keep my voice consistent with love and not with cross-examination. "I need you to understand what this looks like from my side of the table," I said. "You asked to pull from our cushion for course materials. I agreed. I added you to the travel card and turned on alerts because I'm a seatbelt person. Those alerts said Las Vegas. Your photo said Las Vegas. Then there's a fee at another hotel. That is not a dorm. That is not a scholarship partner's housing. That is a trip to Vegas." "It's training," she said. "It's not my fault where they put us." "Who they?" I asked gently. She picked one. "The partner org," she said. "What's their name?" I asked. She opened her mouth and closed it. "You're being insane," she said softly. A switch flipped. "You've always been weird about money. This is why I didn't want to tell you anything. You take a fun thing and turn it into a spreadsheet." "I took our money and turned it into a spreadsheet," I said, "because that's what money is." She stared at the pages like they had betrayed her personally. "You and your little receipts," she said, and that word receipts should have made me angry the way a punch makes you angry, but it just made me tired. "I'm not asking you to justify your life to me," I said. "I'm asking you to speak to me like I live in it." She stood up so quickly the stool made a scraping sound. "I'm not doing this right now," she said. "I need a shower." "Jenna," I said, very quiet, "I'm going to ask you one more time. Did your company approve this trip? Will they reimburse the expenses? And if they don't, will you sign a promissory note to repay the $800 we borrowed from the cushion?" She looked like I'd slapped her. It wasn't drama. It was offense that I had used a grown-up word in a room she wanted to keep for teenagers. A promissory note, she said, incredulous. Are you kidding me? I'm asking for a seatbelt, I said. If everything is what you say, training and scholarship and reimbursements, then this is just paper. If it isn't, the paper matters. God, she said, disgust dripping from the word. You sound like HR. HR is who I emailed, I said. Not about you, about policy. I wanted to know what was reimbursable and what wasn't. Her eyes snapped back to mine. You emailed my HR? Your HR portal has a public page, I said, keeping my voice even. I submitted a general question as a person asking about policy. I didn't use your name. I didn't say anything about Vegas. I asked if lodging for third-party scholarships gets reimbursed. If the answer is yes, we're done. If it's no, then we agree on how the cushion gets put back. She stared at me like she was waiting for the ceiling to drop an answer. Something in her posture slackened, like a person who realizes the wave they swam under wasn't the last one. I need to shower, she said again, softer. We can talk after. I nodded and stepped back. She took her bag and went down the hall. The bathroom door closed. The water started. I leaned on the counter and watched the folder sit there like an appliance. It didn't judge. It held pages. It was designed to survive backpacks. Steam made a whisper under the bathroom door. The dog flopped on the rug like he'd just been paid $1,000 to be here. I put the kettle on, not because I wanted tea, but because I needed an action with a beginning, a middle, and an end I could trust. The phone buzzed with an email. I looked. HR had replied. Policy third-party professional development received independently by an employee is not reimbursable unless pre-approved in writing. Lodging and meals are not reimbursable in any case. Prior authorization is required. Documentation, pre-approval form, itinerary, certificate of completion. There it was. Not a verdict, not a sentence, a form. The bathroom water stopped. I set 2 mugs on the counter, one empty, one with a tea bag waiting. I put the folder next to them and placed a pen on top of the promissory note like a person in a commercial for reasonable men. I took a breath and told myself, do the first half without making it worse. The second half will be making it better without lying about the first. The bathroom door opened. Steam rolled into the hall like a slow fog. Jenna walked into the kitchen in a towel, her hair twisting water down her shoulders, her face scrubbed of the day's performance. What's the email say? She asked, voice too steady. She had rehearsed that question in 10 minutes of hot water. I slid my phone across. She read it. Her jaw went stubborn in that way I know. She set the phone down, looked at the folder, looked at me. Okay, she said, and that word had 4 possible meanings, and I didn't know yet which one would show up. Okay can mean a lot of things. In that second, it meant she'd seen something she couldn't outrun and was picking which version of herself to be in the next 5 minutes. She dropped the towel edge with a little flick, like confidence was a piece of lint. If I sign your note, she said, lingering on the word like it had slivers, then you'll stop acting like I robbed you? I'll stop acting like there isn't a cost, I said, and I'll stop letting the future me pay it with interest. She stared at the pen like it insulted her lineage. Then she sat, flipped the folder open, read the single page the way you read a label on a bottle you don't want to admit you need, and signed. Her signature looked like a bird trying to get off the page. Congratulations, she said flat, pushing the pen back. You win the world's saddest spelling bee. This isn't winning, I said. It's seatbelts. She laughed once, a sound with no smile in it. You're unbelievable, she said, and walked back down the hall with her towel like a flag. I poured hot water over tea because I needed something to do that had rules and an end. When she came back dressed, hair a clean halo, she moved around me like I was a chair she'd put in the wrong place. She took her mug without looking at me and drank like it was a dare. I'm not your enemy, I said quietly. You're not my partner either, she said, and I didn't tell her I agreed because agreement felt like gasoline in that moment. We didn't fight. We didn't shout. There was no slam of a door, no neighbor pausing a TV show to listen. After tea, she packed a small bag. I'm going to my sister's, she said. We need space. Space arrived like a weather system. She left without taking anything that would make noise. The apartment looked the same and felt like a stage after the actors go home, props in their places, lines still in the air. I slept badly and then slept like a rock, alternating between the two until morning made the choice for me. I spent Monday being an adult. I called the bank and removed her authorized user access, not because I was burning bridges, but because bridges with traffic you don't control collapse. I lowered the travel card limits again to a place that would annoy me but not wreck me. I moved 800 back into the cushion from checking because I hate owing myself. I sent her a photo of the signed note with the words, "Thank you for dealing with the unfun part. First installment, due the 15th. I'll send a reminder that morning, then I'll drop it forever after it's paid." No response. HR from her company never wrote again after their policy email. They didn't need to. The form existed. The form had rules. The part of me that always wants to pick up a phone and push a problem into someone else's lap stayed very still. Jenna came back Wednesday afternoon for clothes and shoes and all the lotions that make shelves look like a pharmacy. She was brisk. She didn't look at the couch where we used to fall asleep after movies. She didn't look at me in a way that meant anything. "Do you want the air fryer?" she asked, as if we were strangers splitting a hotel minibar. "You take it," I said. "You actually use it for something that tastes good." "And the framed national parks map?" she asked. "Mine," I said. "I like coloring in the little squares." She nodded like we were negotiating a treaty in neutral waters. She signed a simple roommate split note I'd typed, "Utilities through the end of the month, deposit division once the landlord inspected." She initialed next to plants, hers, cookware, mine, books, chaos, so we split by height like I'd joked, and it worked better than any logic ever could. While she folded clothing into a suitcase she hadn't taken to her scholarship, a delivery guy buzzed. "Package for Jenna," he said into the intercom. She came to the door, took the flat envelope without opening it, and set it on the table absent-mindedly while she zipped a boot. The envelope was thick paper with a glossy logo I didn't recognize, Horizon Collective, return address, Las Vegas. In the top right corner, certificate enclosed. I didn't say a word. She glanced at it, registered the branding, and for a millisecond forgot to hold her face. Then the mask receded like a click. "I'll grab that," she said, sweeping it into her tote. "You left your charger on the nightstand," I said, because if I named the certificate, the room would change shape forever, and I wanted to finish the paperwork before we moved the furniture. When she was gone again, the apartment remembered it was mine half the time. I wrote the landlord. I circled a date to get the place steam cleaned. I texted my brother to see if he still had that spare dresser he'd been threatening to throw away for 5 years. He did. It arrived in the back of a pickup like a piece of family history no one could explain. The 15th came. No payment. At lunchtime, I sent a reminder in the tone you use for an invoice between friends. She replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Then an hour later, a bank transfer for $200 with the memo, "Materials." I wrote back, "Thank you, 3 to go." She didn't respond. I deleted the thread so I wouldn't stare at it like a campfire. Endings don't happen once, they happen in installments. I found myself doing small rituals that felt like glue. I changed the Wi-Fi name from our inside joke to something boring. I moved her mugs to a box in the closet so I wouldn't resent coffee. I put my national parks map over the spot where her macrame had been so the wall didn't look like a missing tooth. I ran early, in the dark, and let the city be a place where you can decide who you're going to be before anyone else votes. At work, a postcard went around about an internal course on risk-aware communication. It made me think of the lawyer who called himself a seatbelt, so I signed up. The instructor wasn't flashy. He used phrases like, "Document what you saw, not what you're sure of, and don't turn other people's choices into your homework." He didn't know it, but he was teaching me how to be a person with fewer apologies in the queue. The second payment arrived late again, 2 days after the due date, with no memo this time. I said nothing. Words were gasoline. The third came early by an hour because she must have scheduled it wrong, or maybe she wanted to beat me to that particular line. The fourth hit the morning of the 15th, a neat little ping, and my body did a thing it hadn't in weeks. It unclenched without permission. 2 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. "This is Curtis from Horizon Collective. Is Jenna available at this number?" I stared at the name long enough to pull a whole file out of the drawer in my head. Curtis, mentor from before we met. The guy who'd once introduced himself at a party as a connection architect. I could have replied, something weaponized. I could have sent a thumbs down with a paragraph after it. I deleted the message and blocked the number, not my homework. That night, my doorbell rang. When I opened it, Jenna stood there with a different face than the one she'd been wearing. It wasn't regret. It wasn't victory. It was a face you get after you run into a glass door you didn't know was there. "Do you still have the note?" she said without hello. "It's in the folder on the shelf," I said. She came in like someone stepping into a church she didn't believe in. She took the folder out, pulled the note, and ran her finger under the last line like it might have changed when she wasn't looking. Then she took a second sheet of paper from her tote and set it next to ours. Horizon. Collective Certificate of Completion. Below that, smaller, in a font that makes promises, the Renegade Partnership Intensive. I didn't laugh. It would have been cheap. She set a hand on the counter and leaned in. He said scholarship, she said, and now there was a little crack in her voice. He said the brand uses that word because it drives engagement. He said the hotel rates were covered. He said there'd be hiring managers there. He said a lot of things. Curtis, Connection Architect, Horizon Collective. I waited. And, I said, and it was not a training, she said. It was couples. The first night they did an exercise where you write what you think you deserve on a card and your partner reads it out loud. He said we were partners for the weekend. I said we weren't. He laughed and said language is fluid. I slept in a room alone anyway. I should have left. I didn't. I told myself it would help my career if I learned how people sell things. Did it? I asked, not unkindly. It taught me I don't like the person I am when I want to be somewhere I wasn't invited to be, she said. I told him I had a boyfriend. He said everyone has a boyfriend until the contract is signed. He said more things. The last morning he asked if I wanted to extend through Wednesday for the executive package. He said scholarship again. And you said? I said I was an idiot, she said. Then I checked out and paid 2 resort fees because Horizon only covered the base rate. They comped his room, not mine. That's what the charges were. Resort fees, at 2 properties. The math made a shape with corners instead of teeth. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she said. I'm telling you I wasn't honest because I was embarrassed to want something that silly that badly. I liked hearing my name and the words selected in the same sentence. It made me forget other words like apartment and partner and, apparently, dorm. I let the silence sit long enough to make a point, not long enough to bruise. Thank you for telling the truth, I said. It doesn't change the ending. It changes the way I remember the middle. She nodded, eyes shining, but tears didn't fall because she is the sort of person who saves tears for showers or cars. I figured, she said. This is me closing my tab. If you want me to write anything else on that note, tell me. You finished it, I said. We're square. I'm not, she said. But you are. Thank you for not making it a spectacle. I don't do spectacles, I said. I do folders. She smiled at that, for real, a tiny sunrise that arrived too late to change the weather but was still beautiful. I hope you find someone who likes seatbelts, she said. I hope you find someone who doesn't say scholarship when they mean Vegas, I said. She tucked the certificate back into her tote. At the door, she turned. If your HR ever needs a case study in policy language, she said with a ghost of her old mischief, tell them to call me. I will, I said, and it was both a joke and not. The door closed softly. A click in the latch, the good kind of click. Spring came like it always does, not asking permission, just unfurling. I moved to a smaller place with trees outside the window and a landlord who fixed things because he actually liked being needed. The first night there, I slept 8 hours like a person who had not been in Vegas even by proxy. On Saturdays, I ran to the park and watched old men argue about baseball on benches. On Sundays, I cooked soup and listened to records I pretended were my dad's. I thought about Curtis exactly twice. Once when I saw an ad for a conscious leadership summit with a font that smelled like peppermint oil, and once when a guy at the coffee shop introduced himself to the barista as a networking ninja. Both times I put $1 in the jar and left. 2 months later, a woman at a community class on making fresh pasta laughed at my flour disaster and said, "You're supposed to let the dough rest, not bully it." And I said, "I'm learning to wait my turn." And she said, "I like that." And then we argued about whether linguini is a personality type or a shape. Her name is Mara. She's a school speech therapist who considers glitter a biohazard. Our second date was a walk with thermoses. Our third date was a flea market where she bought a painting of a goat because, in her words, the goat had something to say. When I told her I like seatbelts, she said, "I like not dying in cars," and we left it there. Jenna texted once in the summer, "I got a new job, better title, no scholarships involved. Hope you're well." I wrote back, "Good, I am. You too." That was the last time our phones spoke. Every now and then I open the folder to find the empty plastic sleeve and the note with 4 neat bank transfers across the bottom, and I remember the feeling of writing for my records. Not for punishment, for clarity. It turns out that's a decent way to live when you're not trying to make a show. It's a way to be a person who can sleep. If you were in my kitchen with that folder, would you have torn it up or asked for the signature? Would you have called her HR or kept it between 2 people who used to split a grocery list? Tell me your take in the comments, and if this story kept you listening, hit like and subscribe so the next quiet win finds the next person who needs one.